Before we begin, take a moment to settle where you are. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day loosen its grip, just as it will in the story ahead. Wherever you're listening from, imagine the room growing quieter, the light softening, the world outside slowing down. If you'd like, leave a small trace of yourself here by sharing the name of your city and the time it is right now. It's a quiet way of arriving together, different places connected by the same passing hour. This is a space for unremarkable moments, for history at its most ordinary and human. There are no sharp edges here, no urgency, only the gentle rhythm of a city winding down for the night. As you listen, you don't need to remember details or hold on to names. Just let the scenes drift by, like thoughts that don't need to settle anywhere. Now, as your breathing steadies and the noise of the present fades, allow yourself to step into another evening, long ago, where the day is ending in much the same way. The sun lowers itself gently behind the broad, familiar shape of Mount Vesuvius, and you feel the day loosen its grip on the city of Pompeii. The sun lowers itself gently behind the broad, familiar shape of Mount Vesuvius, and you feel the day loosen its grip on the city of Pompeii. The heat that clung to the stones all afternoon begins to soften, seeping slowly back into the earth. Warm air drifts through the streets one last time before cooling, carrying with it the mixed scents of dust, olive oil, baked bread, and faint traces of smoke from household fires being fed for the evening meal. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands attention. The city simply eases into itself. You walk along a familiar street, your sandals brushing fine grit that has settled between the stones. The road still holds the sun's memory, releasing warmth upward through the soles of your feet. Walls on either side glow with the last amber light, their colors deepening as shadows stretch and merge. Faded reds and ochres darken, blues soften, and painted figures on the plaster seem to relax as daylight fades. Doorways stand open, curtains stirring lazily, revealing brief glimpses of domestic life continuing without urgency. From somewhere nearby, you hear the steady splash of water in a courtyard fountain. It repeats itself patiently, as it has all day, as it will through the night. The sound blends with distant voices, low and unhurried, conversations winding down rather than beginning. Laughter rises briefly, then settles again, like a ripple across still water. Even the city's noises seem to grow tired at this hour. You pass a bakery where the ovens have been quieted. The sharp scent of fresh bread still lingers in the air, warm and reassuring. A few loaves sit cooling, their crusts cracking softly as they release heat. Nearby, a shopkeeper lowers a wooden shutter with practiced care, the sound of it meeting stone echoing gently down the street. Nothing is slammed. Everything is placed where it belongs. The sky above shifts almost imperceptibly, blue thinning into pale gold, then into something softer still. Birds settle into silence along roof lines and beams, their movement slowing as they tuck themselves away. You notice how the city seems to breathe differently now. The harsh brightness of midday is gone, replaced by a calmer rhythm, as though Pompeii itself has decided to rest its shoulders and let the evening carry some of the weight. As you continue, the street narrows slightly, drawing you closer to the buildings. Your fingers brush against cool stone as you pass, the texture uneven and worn smooth in places by generations of hands. The walls hold stories without speaking them. Marks left by carts, faded notices, scratches whose meanings are long forgotten. You do not try to read them. You simply let them be. Ahead, a household prepares for supper. You hear the clink of pottery, the soft scrape of a bench being pulled closer to a table. The smell of herbs warming in oil drifts outward, subtle but inviting. Inside, lamplight flickers to life, casting a golden circle that spills gently onto the street. Shadows stretch and sway, sharp, never alarming, just movement enough to remind you that people are settling in for the night. The farther you walk, the quieter it becomes. Footsteps grow more spaced out, voices more distant. Somewhere, a dog shifts in its sleep, nails clicking faintly against stone before stillness returns. You feel the air cool against your skin now, brushing your arms, your neck. It carries with it the promise of night, but not the chill, just relief. You pause near a crossroads where the road opens briefly, giving you a clear view of the darkening sky and the looming outline of the mountain. Vesuvius stands as it always has, broad and unmoving, its slopes fading into shadow. It does not demand your attention. It never does. It is simply there, part of the background of daily life, as unremarkable as the stones beneath your feet. Torches are lit one by one, their flames small and controlled. They do not blaze. They glow. The light they give off softens edges, smooths corners, and turns familiar paths into gentle corridors of shadow and warmth. You follow one such path, letting the rhythm of your steps slow to match the evening's pace. The sounds of labor have vanished now. No hammers strike, no carts rumble. What remains is quieter and more personal. The murmur of a family gathering, the low hum of someone humming to themselves, the rustle of fabric as people shift positions and settle into comfort. These sounds do not carry far, but you catch fragments of them as you move, like pieces of a larger shared calm. A breeze moves through the street, stirring dust and carrying the smell of the sea faintly inland. It is barely noticeable, but you feel it all the same, cooling your skin and lifting the edge of your tunic. The breeze slips between buildings, into open windows, across courtyards, touching every corner of the city in its slow, deliberate way. You notice how time feels different now, not measured by tasks or obligations, but by light and sound and sensation. The sky dims another shade, a lamp is adjusted, a voice lowers. The evening does not announce itself. It arrives gradually, so gently that you almost do not notice the moment day becomes night. As you walk, your steps become softer, not because you are trying to be quiet, but because the world around you seems to invite it. The stones beneath your feet no longer radiate heat, only a faint warmth. The air settles around you, heavier and more still. You feel grounded, held by the city, as though Pompeii itself is guiding you along familiar paths without any need for thought. In a small square, you stop again. The space is open, calm, and nearly empty. A single lamp glows near a doorway, its light reflecting faintly off polished stone. The shadows here are deep but not unsettling. They simply exist, sharing space with the light in easy balance. You stand for a moment, listening to the quiet, feeling it settle into you. Above, the first stars begin to appear, faint and unassuming. They do not sparkle yet. They simply emerge, one by one, as if testing the sky. You lift your gaze briefly, then let it fall again, drawn back to the earth and the steady presence of the city around you. There is no sense of anticipation, no hint of urgency. This evening is like countless others before it, ordinary and complete in its simplicity. You feel no need to hurry. The streets will be here. The night will unfold at its own pace. For now, you continue walking, letting the last light fade behind you, carrying with it the warmth of the day and leaving behind a calm that feels deep, familiar, and unbroken. You drift away from the open street and pass beneath a doorway, leaving behind the wider hush of the city for something more intimate. Inside, the air changes immediately. It is warmer here, softer, carrying the layered scents of oil, cooked vegetables, damp stone, and faint traces of incense. The space feels enclosed but not confining, shaped by walls that have learned how to hold sound gently. Your footsteps quiet themselves without effort, absorbed by packed earth and worn tiles. An oil lamp burns nearby, its flame steady and patient. ancient. It does not flicker wildly, only bends now and then as air moves through the house. The light pools along the floor, climbing slowly up the walls, touching painted surfaces that glow faintly in the dimness. Colors deepen rather than fade. Reds grow richer, yellows warmer, outlines softer. Faces painted long ago seem to relax into shadow, as if they, too, are settling in for the night. You move farther inside, and a courtyard opens before you. The sky above is now a deepening blue, framed by the square of the roofline. A fountain rests at the center, its water flowing with quiet consistency. The sound is neither loud nor insistent. It is simply there, a calm repetition that steadies the space. Each splash follows the last without hurry, as if time itself has slowed to match its rhythm. Around the courtyard, rooms glow with lamplight. Curtains are drawn part way, not to shut the night out, but to soften it. In one room, a family gathers around a low table. Their voices are hushed, not secretive, just relaxed. Words pass between them without emphasis. The day's concerns seem to have lost their sharp edges, reduced to simple observations, small comments, familiar phrases spoken countless times before. Someone pours wine, careful not to spill. The liquid glints briefly in the lamplight before settling into a cup. Bread is broken, not torn. Hands move with quiet confidence, knowing exactly where things are kept, how much space to leave, how to share without discussion. These movements feel practiced but not mechanical. They are the result of repetition, yes, but also of comfort. You linger near the edge of the courtyard, feeling the cool stone beneath your fingertips. It holds the memory of the day's warmth, but offers relief now. The air carries moisture from the fountain, brushing your skin lightly. Somewhere above, a breeze passes over the open roof, stirring leaves and carrying distant sounds from beyond the walls. They arrive softened, filtered, no longer sharp enough to demand attention. In another part of the house, someone adjusts a lamp wick. The flame rises slightly, then steadies. The room brightens just enough to make shadows retreat a little, gathering instead along corners and beneath furniture. The balance between light and dark feels deliberate, even if no one has thought about it consciously. It is simply what feels right at this hour. You notice how sound behaves here. Voices do not echo. They settle quickly, absorbed by plaster, fabric, and air. The clink of pottery is dull, rather than sharp. Footsteps are more suggestion than noise. Even the fountain seems quieter inside these walls, as though respecting the stillness of the household. Time moves gently. No one watches it. There is no signal to mark its passing, except the gradual darkening of the sky above the courtyard and the subtle shift in temperature as night deepens. The concerns of the wider world feel distant here, reduced to faint impressions that barely cross the threshold. In a side room, someone prepares a place to rest. A mat is unrolled. A blanket is folded carefully, smoothed flat by patient hands. The fabric smells faintly of clean wool and smoke. There is no ceremony in this, no sense of preparation for anything significant. It is simply what happens at the end of the day, the same as it did yesterday and the day before that. You move again, passing through another doorway into a neighboring home. The transition is easy. The spaces here differ in small ways, but the rhythm is the same. Another courtyard, another fountain, another lamp glowing low. The repetition is soothing, not dull. Each home feels distinct, yet all share the same quiet language of evening. In one courtyard, potted plants line the walls. Their leaves catch the lamplight, reflecting it softly. The scent of damp earth rises as water splashes nearby. Somewhere a cricket begins its song, tentative at first, then steady. Its sound weaves itself into the fabric of the night without disturbing anything. Low voices continue, rising and falling gently. You do not focus on the words. Their meaning matters less than their presence. They signal safety, familiarity, the comfort of not being alone. Even when conversation fades, the silence that follows feels full rather than empty. You pause beneath an overhang and look back across the courtyard. The scene feels complete, held in balance, light and shadow, sound and stillness, movement and rest. Nothing presses forward, nothing pulls away. The household exists in this moment without effort. Beyond these walls, the city of Pompeii continues its slow settling. But here, inside these homes, the world has narrowed to something manageable, something human. The vastness of the night sky feels distant now, framed neatly by stone and timber. The looming presence of the mountain is out of sight, forgotten entirely. As the evening deepens, voices grow quieter still. Words stretch farther apart. Someone yawns, covering their mouth out of habit rather than courtesy. A lamp is turned down, its flame reduced to a smaller, steadier glow. Shadows deepen, but they do not threaten. They simply fill the spaces left behind. You feel the calm of routine settle into you. There is reassurance in knowing how this hour unfolds, in recognizing the patterns without needing to name them. The night does not arrive suddenly. It seeps in gently, carried on lamplight and murmured voices and the steady pulse of water in stone basins. Eventually, even those low sounds begin to thin. Conversations fade into silence. Footsteps cease. The fountains continue, patient and unchanging, their rhythm now the dominant sound. You stand quietly, breathing in the cool, damp air, letting the stillness deepen around you. The home's rest, held together by walls and habit, and the unspoken understanding that tomorrow will come in its own time. You find yourself drawn back toward the streets, slipping out from the hush of enclosed courtyards and into lanes that are still awake, though only just. The evening has progressed enough that the city no longer works at full voice. Instead, it murmurs. Wooden shutters are being eased into place, not slammed, but guided down with care, each one releasing a soft thud as it meets stone. Hands linger on the wood for a moment, checking the fit, feeling for familiarity rather than security. The air carries layered scents that feel gently exhausted. Wine that has breathed all afternoon. Bread that has long since cooled. Smoke that has thinned into something sweet and distant. You move slowly, unhurried, letting these traces follow you like memories rather than signals. A tavern doorway glows faintly, its interior quieter than it was earlier. The sharper edges of conversation have softened into murmurs. Cups are gathered, wiped clean, stacked with practiced motions that require no thought. A final jug is poured, not generously, not sparingly, just enough to finish what remains. The wine smells warmer now, heavier, mingling with the scent of damp wood and old stone. Someone laughs softly, a sound without expectation, and it fades before it can carry far. You pass by without turning your head, knowing the scene will close itself gently behind you. Farther along, a merchant counts coins by lamplight, the metal clicking together in a slow, almost thoughtful rhythm. Each coin is weighed briefly in the hand before being set aside. The sound is muted, absorbed by the thick evening air. When the counting is done, the pouch is tied and placed where it belongs. The gesture feels final, not dramatic. Just another end to another ordinary day. The lamp is turned lower, its flame shrinking into a steady glow that barely reaches the street. You notice how the people around you move now. Shoulders are looser, steps are slower. The tension of transaction has dissolved, replaced by the quiet certainty of routine. Laborers walk with the easy fatigue of bodies that have been used well and will soon rest. Tools are carried without urgency, already half forgotten until morning. A man pauses to stretch his back, exhaling as he does, the sound unguarded and human. He continues on without looking back. A bakery releases one final breath of warmth as its door closes. The oven inside has been banked, its glow reduced to embers that will last through the night. The smell of flour and heat lingers stubbornly, clinging to the stonework and drifting into the street. You inhale it without meaning to. It settles somewhere deep, familiar, and comforting. A reminder that nourishment has been taken care of, that nothing more is required of this day. The sky above has darkened further now. The last colors drained away, leaving a calm, even tone. Amps line the streets at intervals, their light forming islands rather than a continuous path. You move between them, passing through alternating pools of glow and shadow. The darkness does not feel empty. It feels full, occupied by the presence of walls, doorways, closed stalls, and the quiet knowledge of people resting just beyond them. Near a corner, a shopkeeper secures the final latch and steps back to inspect his work. Satisfied, he turns, adjusts his cloak, and walks away without ceremony. The street accepts his departure easily. Nothing rushes to fill the space he leaves behind. The silence stretches a little, then settles again, like dust after a cart has passed. The smell of smoke thins as household fires are reduced, their purpose fulfilled. What remains is softer, mixed with night air and faint moisture rising from stone. Somewhere nearby, water trickles through a channel, unseen but persistent. Its sound threads through the stillness, connecting one quiet moment to the next. You pass a stall where fabric once hung brightly in the sun. Now it is bundled away, its colors hidden, waiting. The poles stand bare, casting thin shadows that barely reach across the ground. You run your hand lightly along one as you walk by, feeling the smoothness worn into the wood by years of use. It is cool to the touch now, no longer warmed by daylight. At the edge of a small square, a pair of figures part ways. There is no lingering farewell. A nod, a brief word. Each turns in a different direction, footsteps fading almost immediately. The square returns to stillness as if nothing passed through it at all. The city feels smaller now, more contained. Paths that felt busy earlier have narrowed into quiet corridors. The buildings lean in gently, their presence reassuring rather than imposing. You sense how familiar these streets are to those who walk them daily, how little thought is required to navigate them in near darkness. The city carries its people as much as they carry it. Somewhere, a door closes with a soft finality. Somewhere else, a lamp is extinguished, plunging a stretch of wall into shadow. These small endings do not disrupt the night. They deepen it. Each one adds another layer to the calm, another signal that the day has been fully accounted for. You slow even more now, matching the city's pace. There is nowhere specific to go. The act of moving feels enough. The stones beneath your feet are cool and steady, grounding you in the present moment. Above, the sky offers no distraction, only depth. The last voices fade into private spaces. The last transactions conclude without record or remembrance. What remains is the quiet continuity of Pompeii itself, resting between one day and the next. You continue on, surrounded by closed shutters, dim lamps, and the lingering perfume of a life gently set aside until morning, feeling the night draw itself tighter around the streets, not to confine, but to protect. You step into spaces where the night feels carefully held, guided by plastered walls and measured light. The rooms are shaded now, not dark, shaped by lamps placed with quiet intention. Their glow drifts across surfaces that have known centuries of hands and eyes. Frescoes line the walls, their colors deepened by the absence of daylight. Reds soften into warmth, blues sink into calm, and the pale outlines of figures and gardens seem to breathe more slowly in the dimness. You pause without realizing it, letting your attention settle where it wishes, unhurried. The air here is cooler, touched by stone that has finally released the last of the day's heat. It carries faint traces of oil smoke and old incense, the kind that never quite leaves, lingering in corners and along beams. You move along a corridor where painted columns stretch upward, creating the illusion of space beyond the walls. Even now, with light low and shadows generous, the images offer a sense of openness, a reminder that beauty was meant to be lived with, not admired from a distance. Your footsteps soften as you walk, absorbed by tiled floors worn smooth over time. Each tile bears subtle differences in texture and tone, evidence of use rather than neglect. These are not rooms designed for spectacle. They are shaped for daily presence, for meals eaten quietly, for moments of rest, for passing thoughts that never needed to be recorded. The art surrounding you does not demand attention. It waits. You pass beneath a painted archway where vines curl endlessly along the plaster, their leaves frozen in a season that never changes. Birds perch among them, wings half spread, caught mid-motion. By lamplight, the scene feels less like an image and more like a suggestion, something your mind completes without effort. The boundary between what is painted and what is real grows thin, and for a moment the walls seem to extend the room rather than contain it. In a side chamber, a small household shrine rests against the wall. It is modest, its figures familiar rather than grand. A lamp burns nearby, its flame steady, casting gentle light across offerings placed with care. A pinch of grain, a small cup, a folded scrap of cloth. Nothing elaborate. The gestures that brought these objects here were quiet ones, shaped by habit and trust rather than ceremony. You sense how faith lives in these spaces, not as something separate from daily life, but woven directly into it. The room holds stillness easily. Sound behaves differently here, settling almost immediately, as though the walls themselves have learned how to listen without repeating what they hear. You notice your own breathing, slow and even, matching the calm of the space. The night outside feels distant now, filtered through layers of stone and plaster and painted color. You move again, passing into another room where a scene of water covers the wall. A painted pool reflects imagined light, its surface forever undisturbed. The illusion feels deliberate, chosen not for grandeur, but for its quiet reassurance. Even in the heart of the house, water is present, reminding those who live here of balance and continuity. By night, the painted ripples seem almost to move, responding subtly to the flicker of the lamp. The ceilings above you are darker, beams crossing overhead like steady lines of thought. Smoke has traced its presence there over many evenings, leaving soft shadows that speak of countless lamps lit and extinguished. These marks are not cleaned away. They belong. They are part of the rhythm of the household, as natural as the wear on the floor beneath your feet. You pause near a doorway where curtains hang loosely, their fabric heavy and familiar. They shift slightly as air moves through the room, brushing your arm as you pass. The sensation is grounding, reminding you that these spaces are lived in, touched, shaped by bodies moving through them day after day. Nothing here feels staged. Everything feels settled. The frescoes continue, changing in theme and tone as you walk. Gardens give way to myth, then back to simple patterns and borders. Figures appear and recede, their expressions calm, their gestures restrained. Even stories of gods and heroes are rendered without urgency, their drama softened by scale and repetition. They are present not to overwhelm, but to accompany. In one room, the light is lower still. The lamp has been turned down, its flame reduced to a small, unwavering point. Shadows gather here, but they do not obscure. They smooth edges, blending corners into one another. The painted walls seem to retreat slightly, allowing the space itself to rest. You sense that this room has already been given over to night, claimed gently without announcement. The scent here is different, touched by fabric and stored wood. A chest sits against the wall, its surface polished by years of use. Nearby, a low couch waits, cushions arranged with care that feels instinctive rather than deliberate. These objects do not ask to be admired. They exist to serve, and in doing so, they gain a quiet dignity. You find yourself slowing further, not because you are tired, but because the spaces invite it. Each room flows into the next without interruption, connected by corridors that curve and narrow, guiding movement naturally. The architecture does not force direction. It suggests it, trusting those within to follow. Through a partially open doorway, you glimpse another household, its rooms similarly adorned, similarly calm. The repetition across homes is not monotonous. It is reassuring. It speaks of shared values, shared rhythms, a collective understanding of what makes a life feel complete. Beauty here is not rare. It is expected, integrated, part of the background against which ordinary moments unfold. You become aware of how little separates these interiors from the wider city of Pompeii. Just walls and thresholds, carefully placed. And yet, crossing them changes everything. Outside, the city settles as a whole. Inside, something personal and contained. Both states coexist without conflict, each necessary to the other. As the night deepens, the painted walls seem to absorb more of the lamplight, holding it softly rather than reflecting it back. The colors dim, not into obscurity, but into harmony. Nothing here resists the dark. Everything accommodates it. You stand quietly, letting the stillness gather around you. These rooms do not demand silence, but they reward it. In their presence, worries feel out of place, ambitions unnecessary. What remains is the simple fact of being here, surrounded by color and stone and the gentle weight of habit. Eventually, you move again, guided less by intention than by the natural flow of the space. The corridors carry you onward, out of the painted calm and back toward the wider hush of the night, leaving behind walls that continue to watch, to hold, to wait, unchanged by the passing of hours, content to serve their quiet role in the life of the city. You step back into the open, and the night meets you without surprise. The sky has settled into a deep, even darkness, no longer changing, no longer negotiating with the sun. It feels complete now, The air moves differently at this hour, slower and heavier, as though it has learned the shape of the streets and no longer needs to rush through them. It brushes against your skin with a cool steadiness, carrying the faint smells of stone, damp plaster, and extinguished fires. Pompeii feels larger and quieter all at once. Your footsteps sound clearer here, no longer softened by walls and painted corridors. Each step lands with a muted echo that travels a short distance before dissolving. The sound does not return to you sharply. It fades politely, absorbed by the night. You become aware of how much space there is between noises now, how silence stretches comfortably rather than uncomfortably. It feels intentional, as though the city has chosen to rest. Lamps remain lit at intervals, but fewer than before. Their light pools on the ground, leaving long stretches of street untouched. You move through these alternating bands of glow and shadow, your outline appearing and disappearing as you pass. The darkness between them is not empty. It is full of quiet detail. Doorways recessed into walls, steps worn smooth by years of use, shallow grooves where rainwater finds its way during storms. A stray dog crosses the street ahead of you, pausing briefly to look in your direction. Its shape is thin but relaxed, its movements unhurried. After a moment, it lowers its head and continues on, nails clicking softly against stone before the sound fades. The dog belongs to no one and to everyone, as much a part of the night as the stones themselves. Its presence feels ordinary, expected. You turn down a narrower lane where the buildings draw closer together. The air here is cooler, held longer in shadow. Your breath feels more noticeable, rising and falling evenly. Somewhere nearby, fabric shifts as a curtain stirs in a faint breeze. The sound is barely there, but you catch it, and then it is gone. These small noises stand out now, not because they are loud, but because there are so few of them. The city seems to breathe at this hour, not in any dramatic way, but subtly, through the slow release of warmth from stone and the gentle intake of cool night air. You feel it beneath your feet, through the soles of your sandals. The ground is no longer warm. It is neutral, steady, reliable. It holds you without effort. At an intersection, you pause. In the distance, another set of footsteps echoes briefly, then disappears. You do not see the person who made them. You do not need to. The sound alone is enough to suggest someone else moving through the same calm, guided by memory rather than light. The city allows these crossings without comment, paths intersecting briefly before drifting apart again. A faint scent of the sea reaches you now, carried inland by the night breeze. It is subtle, mixed with the smell of stone and dust, but unmistakable. It reminds you that the city is not isolated, that beyond these streets lies water, open and dark and steady in its own rhythm. The thought feels grounding rather than expansive, a quiet reassurance rather than an invitation. You walk past a public fountain, its basin catching what little light remains. Water flows continuously, its sound clearer now that other noises have receded. The surface reflects fragments of lamp glow and shadow, never holding an image for long. You rest your hand briefly on the stone edge. It is cool and slightly damp, textured with mineral deposits left behind by countless nights like this one. Farther on, a street opens into a wider space. The emptiness here feels deliberate, as though the buildings have stepped back to give the night room to settle. You stand in the center for a moment, surrounded by silence that does not press inward. The sky above feels vast, but not overwhelming. A few stars hold their positions, steady and indifferent. The lamps here are fewer still. One flickers gently near a corner, its flame responding to the breeze, but never going out. Shadows stretch longer, connecting walls and doorways into new shapes that only exist at night. You recognize the streets, but they feel altered, simplified, reduced to their essential forms. A door creaks softly somewhere behind you, then closes again. The sound is slow, careful, as though not to disturb the stillness. Afterward, the street returns to quiet, accepting the interruption without resistance. Nothing lingers. You continue on, guided by familiarity rather than sight. The layout of the city lives in your body now, in the way you turn corners without thinking, in how your pace adjusts instinctively to slopes and uneven stones. Pompeii at night does not require attention. It invites trust. A cat slips out from beneath a bench and disappears into shadow. Its movement is fluid and silent, leaving no trace. The night seems to make room for such moments, absorbing them immediately. You feel no need to mark them, to remember them. They exist fully and then are gone. The air cools further as the hour deepens. You draw your cloak closer without breaking your stride. The fabric feels heavier now, more substantial. It carries the faint smell of smoke and wool, comforting and familiar. The night presses closer, but not with force. It settles around you like an extra layer. You notice how even the city's larger structures feel subdued now. Columns and facades that commanded attention during the day fade into background shapes. Their significance feels reduced, not diminished, but equalized. At night, everything shares the same quiet importance. Somewhere, a shutter rattles briefly, caught by a passing breeze. It settles again almost immediately. The sound does not travel far. The walls hold it close, refusing to let it echo. You slow, then slow again, until your pace nearly matches the rhythm of the night itself. There is no reason to hurry. The streets are empty, but not abandoned. They feel occupied by memory, by routine, by the countless evenings that have unfolded in much the same way. This night does not stand apart. It belongs to a long, unbroken sequence. As you walk, the city of Pompeii feels as though it has turned inward, conserving its energy, content to exist quietly until morning. The breath of the night moves through arches and along walls, over thresholds and across open spaces, touching everything evenly. You continue on through this calm, carried by empty streets and cool air, feeling the city slow with you, step by step, into deeper rest. The streets loosen their hold on you as sound begins to travel farther than sight. Without effort, your attention drifts outward, beyond stone and plaster, toward what lies just past the city's edges. The night carries these distant voices easily now. From behind garden walls comes the steady chorus of insects, their rhythms overlapping without competition. Crickets settle into patterns that feel ancient and instinctive, rising and falling with no clear beginning or end. Their song does not demand listening. It simply exists, threading itself into the silence until the silence itself seems to hum. Leaves stir in unseen courtyards where vines climb trellises and fig trees spread wide in the dark. The sound is soft and irregular, shaped by the faintest movements of air. A branch brushes against another, pauses, then shifts again. These small gestures feel deliberate, as though the plants themselves are adjusting for the night. The city's walls do not keep these sounds out. They slip easily over stone, filtering through open windows and narrow passages, reminding every sleeping household that the natural world remains close. You move along a boundary where the city thins, where buildings grow farther apart and gardens widen. Here, the air smells greener, touched by damp soil and crushed leaves. The scent rises gently, cooling and clean, mixing with the mineral smell of stone. Somewhere nearby, water moves through an irrigation channel, its path guided by shallow grooves cut long ago. The sound is quiet but persistent, a thin line of motion threading through stillness. Beyond this, farther than the eye can reach, the countryside breathes. You sense it more than you hear it at first. Then the night delivers fragments. A distant animal shifting in its enclosure, the faint rustle of grass disturbed by something unseen, the low, almost imagined sound of wind passing over open ground. These sounds do not carry detail, they carry space. They remind you that the city is only one part of a larger, sleeping landscape. From even farther away comes the bay. Its presence is subtle, nearly lost beneath the nearer sounds. But once noticed, it does not disappear. The water moves steadily, its rhythm slow and deep. You cannot hear individual waves, only their collective suggestion, a soft pulse that reaches the city without urgency. The sea does not announce itself. It waits to be noticed, content to remain in the background. You pause near a low wall and rest your hand against it. The stone is cool now, fully given over to night. On the other side, a garden stretches into darkness. You cannot see its boundaries, but you hear it clearly. Insects move through tall grass. Leaves brush against one another. Somewhere, something drops softly to the ground. Then stillness returns. The garden feels alive but untroubled, following rhythms that do not change with human schedules. The air grows slightly cooler as the hour deepens. You draw a slow breath, and with it comes the layered scent of night. Plants, water, earth, and the faintest trace of smoke lingering from earlier fires. Each smell arrives gently, without sharpness. They blend rather than compete, creating something whole and calming. Breathing feels easier here, fuller. A breeze passes through, stronger than before, but still restrained. It carries with it a new arrangement of sounds, shifting the insect chorus, stirring leaves, lifting the distant murmur of the bay just enough to notice. The breeze moves on without lingering, leaving the night rearranged but unchanged. You become aware of how these sounds slip into the city itself. They pass through archways, over rooftops, into courtyards and rooms where lamps burn low and people sleep. Even behind closed shutters, the night finds ways in. It settles along floors and walls, resting near those who dream, shaping sleep without ever touching it directly. In the distance, a bird calls once, then again, then falls silent. The sound echoes faintly before dissolving. It feels less like communication and more like confirmation, a brief acknowledgement of the night's presence. Nothing responds. Nothing needs to. You walk slowly now, letting the sounds guide you rather than your feet. Each step feels lighter, less anchored to the city beneath you. The boundary between built space and natural space softens. Gardens feel like extensions of rooms. Courtyards feel like fragments of the countryside brought inside walls. The distinction matters less the longer you listen. Somewhere beyond the city, water meets shore again and again, patient and unwavering. The rhythm is steady enough to be comforting, distant enough to avoid distraction. It exists alongside the insect song, beneath the rustle of leaves, beneath even your own breathing. You do not follow it outward. You let it remain where it is, knowing it will continue without you. The night seems to deepen, not by growing darker, but by becoming fuller. More sounds settle into place, each finding its own space. None of them rise above the others. There is no center, no focus, just a wide, even field of quiet life continuing as it always has. You sense how these sounds have always been here, long before stone streets were laid, long before walls rose and paintings were applied. They are older than habit, older than memory. The city does not silence them. It accommodates them, allowing them to pass through and around human life without resistance. As you continue walking, the city of Pompeii feels less like a separate place and more like part of this broader night. Its walls do not divide. They soften. They slow the wind, reshape sound, but never fully block it. The night belongs everywhere at once. Eventually, you stop again. Not because you have reached a destination, but because the stillness feels complete. You stand quietly, listening as insects sing, leaves stir, and distant water moves in its endless pattern. The sounds settle around you like a blanket, unbroken and unhurried. Within them, sleep feels close, not as something you must seek, but as something already arriving, carried gently on the breath of the night. The night has settled enough that even sound seems to grow careful. You move through spaces where lamps burn low or have been turned down entirely, their glow reduced to small, steady points that barely disturb the dark. Behind walls and shutters, households have folded themselves inward. Breathing replaces conversation. The small adjustments of bodies finding comfort replace footsteps. The city has reached a depth of quiet that feels complete, as though it has arrived at the purpose of night rather than merely passing through it. You pass close to a window left open just enough for air to move. Inside, a room rests in half shadow. Shapes are softened, edges blurred. A figure lies beneath a blanket, chest rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm. The face is turned away, expression unreadable, already distant. Whatever thoughts filled the day have loosened their hold. Sleep has taken over gently, without struggle. The room holds the warmth of earlier hours, mixed with the cooler air slipping in from outside. Farther along, another house breathes quietly. Here, several sleepers share the same space. One shifts slightly, murmuring without waking, the sound dissolving almost immediately. Another lies still, so motionless that only the faintest movement of fabric confirms rest. Dreams move through them unseen, unannounced. Simple images, fragments of memory, repetitions of familiar paths and gestures. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. The mind wanders where it wishes, free from the weight of the waking world. You sense how these dreams mirror the city itself. Ordinary streets, familiar faces, the repetition of daily life softened and reshaped. A market stall without customers, a garden that never wilts, a walk that leads nowhere in particular, but feels complete all the same. These are not dreams of ambition or fear. They are dreams shaped by habit and reassurance, by the quiet confidence that tomorrow will resemble today closely enough to be trusted. In another home, a child sleeps deeply, limbs slack, breathing uneven but peaceful. The worries of the day never followed them into the night. Their dreams drift without structure, colors and sensations blending freely. Somewhere nearby, an older sleeper lies more still, the weight of years evident even in rest. Their dreams are slower, more deliberate, shaped by memory rather than imagination. Both exist side by side, held by the same walls, the same night. You continue on, careful not to disturb the calm, though nothing suggests you could. The city feels sealed in sleep, not locked away, but gathered inward. Even the stray animals have found places to rest. A dog lies curled against a wall, nose tucked beneath its tail. A cat sleeps on a warm patch of stone that still remembers the day. Their dreams, if they come, are brief and instinctive, passing like ripples across still water. The air feels heavier now, thick with stillness. It presses gently against your skin, encouraging slower movement, quieter thought. You become aware of your own breath again, steady and unremarkable, matching the rhythm of the sleepers around you. There is no sense of intrusion here. The night accepts your presence as easily as it accepts everything else. Above the rooftops, the sky remains unchanged. Stars holding their places without flicker. The moon, if present at all, offers only the faintest suggestion of light, enough to soften darkness, but not enough to shape it. The city does not rely on the sky at this hour. It relies on walls, on habit, on the shared understanding that night is meant for rest. You pass a doorway where a small lamp still burns, forgotten or intentionally left. Its flame is steady, untroubled by drafts. The light falls across the threshold, illuminating dust settled into cracks, tiny details unnoticed during the day. The lamp seems to stand watch without purpose, marking nothing, guarding nothing. It simply exists, a quiet companion to the dark. Inside that home, someone stirs, then settles again. The sound is brief, barely there. Sleep closes back over them immediately, smooth and uninterrupted. The night does not react. It absorbs the moment and moves on, unchanged. You feel how fragile this calm appears, and yet how durable it truly is. Night after night, the city enters this state, trusting in its continuity. No one marks the moment when full rest arrives. It is felt rather than observed, recognized without needing to be named. This evening is no different from countless others. Its ordinariness is its strength. Dreams drift through Pompeii quietly, passing through minds without leaving marks behind. They rise and fade, replaced by others, weaving a soft tapestry of thought that never fully forms an image. The city dreams collectively, though no one shares the same vision. Together, these private journeys create a sense of unity that exists only in sleep. You slow until you nearly stop, standing in a place where the night feels deepest. No lamps nearby, no voices, just the presence of walls, roofs, and bodies at rest. The stillness feels layered, built from countless small acts of settling down. A blanket pulled closer, a door closed gently, a thought released. In this quiet, the future feels distant and undefined. Tomorrow exists only as a vague certainty, not a list of tasks or concerns. The past has loosened its grip as well, softened by repetition and familiarity. What remains is the present moment, stretched and calm, held in balance. You linger a little longer, not watching, not listening for anything specific, simply sharing the space. The city rests around you, unaware of itself, content in its unremarkable peace. Dreams continue to move quietly through sleeping minds, fragile and fleeting, yet enough to carry the night forward. The night thins almost without notice, not into morning yet, not into light, but into something lighter than darkness. You sense it first, rather than see it. The air shifts, losing a little of its weight. The silence changes texture, becoming wider, less dense, as though the city has exhaled and not yet drawn breath again. This is the hour that belongs fully to no one, when even sleep loosens its hold. You stand in the streets of Pompeii as they rest in near complete stillness. Lamps have burned low or gone out entirely, leaving only faint traces of light clinging to corners and thresholds. Shadows no longer stretch dramatically. They lie flat and calm, settled into the shapes of buildings and doorways, as if they have found permanent places to rest. The stones beneath your feet feel cool and steady, no longer releasing warmth, no longer taking it in. There is very little sound now. The insects that sang earlier have quieted, their chorus reduced to occasional, isolated notes that fade before they can repeat. The breeze has softened into something barely perceptible, a slow movement of air that seems to pause more often than it moves. Even water sounds subdued, its flow quieter, as if respecting the depth of the hour. You walk slowly, though there is no need to measure your steps. The city holds itself in balance. Houses remain sealed in sleep, their interiors calm and undisturbed. No voices drift through the walls. No footsteps echo. The life contained within these structures feels suspended, resting between dreams and waking. Breathing continues, steady and unseen, the only motion that truly remains. The sky above is no longer fully dark. A faint, even light gathers there, colorless and gentle. It does not announce dawn. It simply suggests that night is not endless. The stars grow harder to notice, not because they have vanished, but because attention no longer clings to them. The sky begins to feel closer. It's infinite, more like a ceiling than an expanse. You pass through a familiar street where even the stray animals have disappeared from sight. They have found shelter, warmth, corners where sleep feels safe. The street belongs only to stone and air now. The buildings seem taller at this hour, their outlines softened but still present, holding their places patiently. A public fountain sits undisturbed, its basin dark and smooth. The water reflects the pale sky faintly, the image so subtle it almost seems imagined. You rest your hand on the stone edge again. It feels colder than before, firm and unchanging. The texture is reassuring, proof of continuity in a world otherwise paused. There is a sense here of preservation, though no one intends it. Nothing is being saved deliberately. Nothing is being recorded. And yet, everything exists exactly as it is meant to at this moment. The city is not preparing. It is not anticipating. It simply is. You notice how even memory feels distant now. Thoughts do not linger. They pass through gently, like the last remnants of a dream dissolving upon waking. There is no need to hold on to them. The mind mirrors the city, settling into a quiet state where nothing presses forward. The looming presence of the mountain remains unseen in the dimness, its outline blending into the sky. It does not draw attention. It does not feel significant. It is part of the background of life here, as ordinary as walls and streets and fountains. It stands without meaning, without intention, just as it always has. A bird stirs somewhere, adjusting its position, feathers brushing softly against stone or wood. The sound is brief, almost imperceptible. Afterward, stillness returns without resistance. The night accepts the interruption and smooths over it immediately. You move through a square that earlier held lamplight and passing figures. Now it is empty, open, serene. The space feels larger than it did before, unclaimed by activity or purpose. The air here feels especially cool, settling into the low places, clinging lightly to your skin. You breathe it in slowly, deeply, feeling it fill your chest without effort. This is the city at its most complete, not because it is active, but because nothing is missing. Every door is closed or open as it should be. Every object rests where it was last placed. Every life is folded inward, held safely within walls and habit and sleep. The city requires nothing from you and asks nothing of itself. The faint light in the sky grows slightly stronger, still soft, still muted. Colors do not return yet. Everything remains within a narrow range of tone, stone, shadow, air. The simplicity is calming. The complexity of daily life has been stripped away, leaving only form and presence. You pause again, not because you have reached an end, but because movement feels unnecessary. The moment stretches comfortably, unbothered by time. This quiet has existed countless times before, unnoticed and unremarked. It will exist again. There is nothing unique about it, and that is precisely what gives it weight. Somewhere within the city, someone will soon stir. A thought will surface. A body will shift toward waking. But that moment has not yet arrived. For now, everything remains suspended in this gentle balance, untouched by urgency or awareness. You stand quietly as the city rests, unaware of the paths history will one day draw through these streets. No ash has fallen. No silence has been forced. Life has simply paused, trusting itself to continue. In this ordinary, fragile calm, Pompeii holds a single, unremarkable moment perfectly still, and you remain there with it, breathing softly, letting the night complete itself. You remain there for a little while longer, letting that fragile stillness hold. Nothing asks you to move on just yet. The city stays exactly as it is, balanced between night and morning, unaware of endings, unaware of beginnings. And in that quiet, it feels natural to let the scene slowly loosen its hold on you. In time, your attention begins to drift back toward where you are now. Not all at once, just gradually, like the faint light in the sky, arriving without announcement. The stone streets and quiet walls of Pompeii do not disappear suddenly. They simply soften, becoming less distinct, until they rest somewhere distant and calm, like the memory of a dream that does not need to be remembered clearly to be felt. If sleep has already found you, then let it carry you the rest of the way. And if you are still listening, still hovering between rest and wakefulness, that is just as it should be. There is no rush. Night has a way of finishing things in its own time. Thank you for spending this quiet hour here, walking slowly through an ordinary evening long ago. Thank you for sharing your time, your stillness, and your listening. Wherever you are, whatever hour surrounds you now, may it feel just a little softer than before. If you'd like, you can leave a quiet good night in the comments, or simply close your eyes and let the night continue without words. Pompeii will remain where we left it, resting peacefully, unchanged by our passing. For now, it's time to let the city sleep, and to let yourself rest as well.